Okay, stop whatever you are doing right now, because we need to talk about what happened on March 7th, 2026. Not just what happened, but why it happened, how it happened, and what it means for everything that is coming. Because on that day, Netflix dropped a trailer. 76 seconds. That's it. 76 seconds of video. And within minutes, not hours, not days, minutes, the entire internet caught fire. Twitter crashed. YouTube comments went into the millions. BTS trended globally in over 40 countries simultaneously. And at the center of it all, one man, one look, one single moment that stopped the world cold. ParkJimin said absolutely nothing. And somehow, that was the loudest thing anyone has heard in years. Let's break this down. Let's go deep. Because this trailer is not just a hype video for a Netflix concert. There are layers here. There are signals here. And if you know Jimin, if you really, truly know who this man is and what he has been through, then you already felt it when you watched that trailer. You felt something shift in your chest the moment his face appeared on screen. And today, we are going to figure out exactly what that feeling was and why it hit so hard. But first, let's set the stage. Because to understand the weight of that 1 second, you have to understand everything that came before it. Cast your mind back to December 2022. BTS announces a hiatus. The K-pop world does not just pause, it shatters. ARMY across the globe goes into a kind of collective mourning that is hard to explain to anyone who is not there to feel it. This was not just about missing music. This was about losing something that had become essential. For millions of people, BTS was the soundtrack to their lives. The voice in their headphones on the worst days, the energy that pulled them out of bed on mornings when nothing else could. And now, one by one, those 7 men were stepping away from the spotlight to fulfill their mandatory military duty to South Korea. Jimin was among the last to go. He enlisted on December 12, 2023, alongside Jungkook, making them the final BTS members to enter military service. And before he disappeared behind those gates, he got on a live stream. He sat there, voice quiet, eyes full of something too big to name, and he told ARMY he had not truly felt the reality of leaving until he shaved his head. That was the moment it became real. Not the paperwork, not the official announcement. The mirror, the reflection of a version of himself he had never seen before. And in that moment, something was already being written. A story that would not reach its conclusion until a trailer dropped 3 years later and the whole world lost their minds over a single look from a man who did not say one word. While Jimin was in service, his music kept breathing. His solo single, Like Crazy, became the first Korean solo song to surpass 1 billion streams globally on Spotify, achieving that milestone while its creator was living in a military barracks with no access to the world that was celebrating him. Think about that. Think about how extraordinary that is. A man in uniform, no stage, no cameras, no performances, and his voice was still reaching billions of people around the planet. That is not a coincidence. That is not just marketing. That is the specific, irreplaceable power of ParkJimin as an artist. His presence does not require a spotlight to exist. It radiates even in his absence. Then June 11th, 2025 arrived. Jimin and Jungkook were officially discharged from military service, completing BTS's full return to civilian life after nearly 3 years of staggered enlistments. Fans had gathered since before dawn outside the discharge location. Fans from Brazil, Portugal, Japan, the United States, all of them standing in the early morning cold just to be near the moment. When Jimin stepped out and shouted unification, the ceremonial discharge call, something shifted. Not just for ARMY, for the industry, for the culture. BTS was whole again, and the countdown to something massive had quietly, officially begun. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Because what happened in the months between that discharge and the release of this Netflix trailer was not just rehearsals and studio sessions. It was a transformation. According to reports and statements from the members themselves after discharge, BTS threw themselves into a punishing creative schedule, working 6 days a week in Los Angeles studios, approaching the process with the intensity and discipline of executives building a company, not just artists making music. This was not BTS going through the motions of a comeback. This was BTS operating like men who had spent 18 months with nothing but time to think about what they wanted to say next, and were now absolutely on fire to say it. And that fire, you can see it in Jimin's eyes in the trailer. The official trailer for BTS The Comeback Live Arirang was soundtracked by a sweeping, orchestral version of Microcosmos, the 2019 BTS ballad about how every individual carries their own light in the universe. Each member received 2 individual shots, with their names displayed in bold white text on screen. And if you think that song choice was random, you clearly underestimate whoever was in that creative meeting. Microcosmos is a deeply specific choice. It is a song about finding meaning in your own singular existence. It is a song that says, you matter exactly as you are, exactly where you are. Playing that song behind the faces of 7 men who just spent nearly 2 years serving their country, away from everything that defined them publicly, stepping back into the light together. That is a statement. That is a declaration. That is Netflix and HYB and BTS saying collectively, we did not disappear. We were always here. And now we are bringing everything back, bigger than before. But then Jimin appears. In the trailer, Jimin's golden hair, deep eyes, and restrained expression under the subtle lighting of JiminBokkgung Palace immediately capture the viewer's attention. The way he tilts his head slightly and holds the camera's gaze pulls the audience in completely. And here is what separates Jimin from virtually every other performer on the planet in a moment like this. He is not performing for the camera. He is communicating through it. There is a massive, massive difference between those two things. Most artists, when a camera is pointed at them, put on a face. They give you something constructed, something designed, something calculated to generate a specific reaction. Jimin does the opposite. He strips everything away. And what is left, what you see in those few seconds, is something raw and completely unguarded that somehow feels more powerful than any choreographed expression could ever be. Korean media outlet Star News described Jimin's presence in the teaser as breathtaking even in 1 second, noting that his elegant yet dreamy atmosphere and delicate charm proved once again why he is considered an artist on stage in the truest sense of the term. Fans responded with lines like, "He made a whole universe with just his eyes," and "He was already the main character within 1 second of appearing." And honestly, that is not hyperbole. That is just an accurate description of what happened. So what is Jimin actually saying with that look? Because he is saying something. That much is undeniable. Let's get into it. The first message in that look is one of arrival. Not just physical arrival, emotional, artistic, spiritual arrival. This is the look of someone who has been on an incredibly long journey and has finally reached the destination they were always supposed to reach. Think about everything Jimin carried into that trailer shoot. Years of being one of the most scrutinized performers on the planet, the pressure of solo albums that needed to succeed, the personal challenge of military service, which, let's be clear, is not some vacation. It is physically demanding, emotionally isolating, and structurally designed to reshape the way a person thinks about themselves and the world. Jimin went through all of that, and he came out the other side and stood in front of that camera and looked directly into it with the calmest, most centered energy you have ever seen from him. That calm is earned. That calm is the product of everything he has been through, and it is absolutely electric to witness. The second message in that look is patience rewarded. Jimin has always been someone who trusts the process, sometimes at great personal cost. There were periods during his career where the public could see the strain of expectation wearing on him. The pressure to be perfect, the fear of falling short, the vulnerability he showed in the Face album era, where he laid his own psychological struggles bare in the music itself, was not an accident. That was a man doing the hard work of actually knowing himself, not just performing a version of himself for public consumption. And now, on the other side of that work, on the other side of the military, on the other side of years of growth as a writer and a performer, he stands in front of a Netflix camera, and the look in his eyes says, "I know exactly who I am, and I am ready to show you." The third message, and this might be the one that hits deepest, is a promise to ARMY. Because Jimin has always had a specific, almost sacred relationship with his fanbase. He has cried for them. He has written songs for them. He has gone on live streams at midnight just to say goodnight. And in this trailer, without a single word, he is delivering the most powerful message he could possibly send. I came back. I actually came back. Everything we said we would do together, we are about to do it. Now let's zoom out and talk about the scale of what is coming. Because the trailer is just the beginning. BTS The Comeback Live Arirang streams live on Netflix on March 21st, 2026 at 8 p.m. Korea Standard Time, that's 4 a.m. Pacific Time and 7 a.m. Eastern Time for American fans. Broadcast from Gwanghwamun Square, the historic main gate of Gyeongbokgung Palace in central Seoul. This location is not just a pretty backdrop. Gwanghwamun is one of the most historically significant locations in all of Korea. It is where the identity of a nation is literally written in stone. To perform there, to stand in front of that gate and deliver music to the entire world, is a statement about legacy, about permanence, about the idea that what BTS represents is not going anywhere. The concert is directed by Hamish Hamilton, whose recent credits include the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show and the 2026 Grammy Awards. A man who specializes in turning massive live events into cinematic experiences. When someone like Hamish Hamilton signs on to direct your concert, that tells you everything you need to know about the scale and ambition of what is being built. The Arirang album itself drops on March 20th, one day before the concert, turning the entire week into a 24-hour sequence of BTS drops that will dominate the global conversation. New music on March 20th. Live concert on March 21st. Documentary film BTS. The Return arrives on Netflix March 27th, directed by Baung Gwin, pulling back the curtain on how all of this came to be. And then, starting April 9th in Goyang, South Korea, the Arirang World Tour launches. 82 shows across 34 regions, projected to be one of the highest-grossing concert tours in history. And Jimin, he contributed as a co-writer on 2 tracks from the Arirang album, They Don't Know About Us and Into the Sun, continuing his evolution as not just a performer but a genuine artist in the fullest sense. Every album cycle, every solo project, every step of his career has pointed toward this. A man who started as a trainee, who almost did not make the group, who worked himself to the bone for years to keep pace with members who had advantages he did not, who faced his own vulnerabilities head-on in his music, and came out the other side with a clarity and a confidence that is genuinely breathtaking to witness. That is who is standing in front of that camera in the Netflix trailer. That is whose eyes are doing all the talking. And if you felt something when you watched it, if something in your chest shifted and you could not quite explain why, now you know. Because what Jimin is communicating in that trailer is not something that can be put into words. It can only be felt. And what it feels like is the beginning of something that the world is absolutely not ready for. March 20th. Album drops. March 21st. The stage ignites. And Jimin, silent, golden-haired, eyes full of everything he has ever lived through, steps back into the light. Army, the homecoming is here. And it is going to be everything. But let's not move past this too quickly, because there is one more dimension of Jimin's story that makes everything about this Netflix trailer hit even harder, and it is something that a lot of people outside of the ARMY community genuinely do not know. And they should, because when you understand the full picture of what this man has built as a solo artist while carrying the weight of a group hiatus and military service simultaneously, you will understand exactly why that 1 second of screen time in a Netflix trailer broke the internet the way it did. When Jimin released his debut solo album Face in March 2023, right before the bulk of BTS's military enlistments began, he did not just release a good album. He rewrote history. Like Crazy became the first song by a Korean solo artist in history to debut at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, a chart that has existed for over 60 years. Think about every Korean artist who came before him. Think about the decades of K-pop expansion, the global wave that BTS itself helped build. And in all that time, in all those decades, no Korean solo artist had ever reached that peak. Jimin did it on his very first solo album. That album also sold over 1 million physical copies on its first day of release on Hanteo, making him the first male Korean soloist in the chart's history to achieve that milestone. One day, 1 million copies. That is not a chart result. That is a statement about the level of global hunger for everything ParkJimin creates. Then he did it again. In 2024, while actively serving in the military, his second album Muse was released, and its lead single, who debuted at #1 on the Billboard Global 200, making it the longest charting song by a Korean artist on the Billboard Hot 100, spending 33 weeks on the chart and surpassing even BTS's own Dynamite. Let that sink in for a second. He broke BTS's own record, individually, while in uniform, while the world could not even see his face or hear his voice in real time. His music was doing all the work, carrying all the weight, winning all the battles, while he was somewhere in a barracks in Yongkyon, waking up before dawn for drills. And if that was not enough, the military itself recognized what kind of man Jimin is. He completed his 5 weeks of basic training, placing first as an outstanding trainee, received the Best Trainee Commendation Award from the division commander, and was later selected as a special class warrior for his excellent military performance. This is the same man who once said in a documentary that his biggest fear was not being good enough. The same man who used to practice until his feet bled because he refused to let his team down. Whatever Jimin puts his name on, whether it is a stage, a record, or a military unit, he brings everything he has. Every single time. So when you watch that trailer again, and you will watch it again, because everyone does, and you see Jimin sitting there in that leather suit under the light of Jinbokgung, golden and calm and absolutely electric, know this. That is not just a performer showing up for a promotional shoot. That is a man who has won every room he has ever walked into, in every arena life has put him in, and is now walking back into the one that was always made for him. The stage, the music, the moment. March 21st is not just a comeback. For Jimin, it is a coronation.